Let me show you how you can make $10,000 this month from wholesaling real estate. The first thing you have to do is find a deal. This is the hardest part of wholesaling and real estate in general. A lot of newbie wholesalers lock up properties under contract that they think are a good deal, but they really aren't. So where do you start? It all starts with good data. Data is the foundation to wholesaling real estate. You need to reach motivated sellers willing to sell at a discount. And I'm going to break down the best lists that give you the highest chance of finding a motivated seller willing to sell the property at a discount. The best data, in my opinion, is county data. What I mean by county data is public records available at the county. That includes the tax delinquent list, the probate list, the evictions list, etc. So every county has property taxes that homeowners have to pay. If they're behind on property taxes, that's a sign they might be motivated to sell. Now, the same goes with evictions and probates. If a landlord wants to evict a tenant, they have to do it at the county courthouse. And same for probates. Probate is when someone passes away and the heir goes to the probate court to finalize the process to inherit their belongings, which includes the house. Also, normally these lists from the county are relatively inexpensive since it's public data. A lot of times, you can pay $10 to $20 a month to pull the evictions or the probate data, or you can get a list of all the tax delinquent properties for only $50. Some counties, it's even free and on their website that you can go look at. So how do you actually get this data? Well, first, Google your county tax office for property taxes, and then call or email someone at the tax office asking for a public records request for a list of all tax delinquent properties. The same will go for probate and evictions. You want to go find the county courthouse that handles these cases and request it from the county clerk or the clerk at that courthouse that you want to do a public records request, and you want a list of eviction cases that were filed and probate cases that were filed. I recommend pulling probate and eviction cases every month, while tax delinquent properties you only pull twice a year. A tip is you want to make sure they send it to you in an Excel compatible file. A lot of times these counties have their own systems to handle the data, and they spit out files in weird formats that you can't open on a regular computer. So you either have to pay someone that has the specialized software to convert it to Excel, or what I like to do is I just request the county convert it for me to an Excel compatible format so that I can open up the data on my computer. And when you're requesting this data, all you really need is the owner's name, the property address, and the owner's mailing address. And if they can provide you the phone number, that's even better. But a lot of times these other cases have a lot more data to that than just those things. And if you don't specify that's all you need, they might charge you more for the extra work they have to do to pull all the data related to the case. So once you actually get the data and the county sends you the data, you're still gonna have to clean it up because it's not ready for us to market yet. It might have a weird file format, the spacing might be off in the cells. You gotta make sure the data is cleaned up so it's easy to use. If you are tech savvy, you can pay someone online to convert it into an Excel file for you, or if it already comes in an Excel file, you want to delete all the excess information that we don't need. On your Excel file, the only columns we need is a column for the owner's first name, a column for the owner's last name, and then columns for the property and mailing address broken out by address, city, state, and zip code. Once you have that data cleaned up in the format I mentioned before, that's when you can start utilizing the data for marketing. You need to market and reach out to these sellers to ask if they're interested in selling their property. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, but I like to do cold calling. You can also do direct mail or texting as well. If you're busy and you have a day job and you don't have the time to hire a virtual assistant and train them or take phone calls, the best thing to do is to get direct mail. Direct mail, you can send out the mail and you know when the mail is going to arrive approximately, so you know when to expect calls. That's how I did when I started out and I had a full-time job. I would send out letters and I would route the number on the postcard or letter to a Google Voice number so they could leave a message and I could check it later when I'm off work. Here's the tip: if you're going to go heavy into the direct mail, I highly recommend getting a business mailbox. Whether that be at the post office, a PO box, or at a UPS store, you can get a mailbox and pay for the year or by the month, because you're going to get a lot of return mail. There's going to be a lot of bad addresses and it's going to come back to you, and you don't want to overload your personal home mailbox with these return letters. Plus, you don't want that address going out to these people knowing where you live. So what you really want to do if you're going to do a lot of direct mail marketing is get a separate UPS box or PO box and have the return mail go there. Now, you can use an online mailing system that really automates the process. All you have to do is upload the Excel file and create a template, and it'll mass mail out to your seller. I like to use clicktomail.com. And I like to use postcards because they're a lot cheaper than a full-blown letter. Also, with a postcard, even if they're gonna throw it away, they'll at least read some of the stuff on the postcard, while a letter they can throw out without even opening. If you want to be more proactive and reach out to the sellers first instead of waiting for them to contact you, you can do cold calling and texting. And in order to do this, there's an extra step we have to do called skip tracing. Skip tracing is finding the phone numbers of these property owners so that we can contact them. And there's a lot of online services that offer this service. For example, REI Skip or batchskiptracing.com both offer skip tracing services where you just upload the Excel file with that information and they'll give you back a file with phone numbers that you can contact. Now keep in mind, it's about a 60 to 70% accuracy rate, so a lot of times you're gonna get some wrong numbers. And they're gonna give you maybe 5 or 6 phone numbers, and you can't tell if it's a landline or a cell phone, but we're gonna clean up this data. 95% of the time, the correct number is gonna be within the first 3 phone numbers. So if they give you back 5 phone numbers, you can just delete the 4th and 5th phone number to save time and be more efficient. Once you've cleaned up the new Excel file and you've shortened it down to just 3 phone numbers, you're going to want to hand dial or text if it's a small list yourself, but if it's a large list, you want to use an automated dialing service. There's plenty of options for this, but a beginner-friendly system I like to recommend is Mojo Dialer. That's what I used when I started out. It's a very intuitive and user-friendly interface, and it's powerful enough to call multiple phone numbers at once, and it's just very simple to understand and use. For mass texting, you can either use Launch Control or Batch SMS. It's the same thing. You'll upload the Excel file, and you can send out mass text messages through those platforms, and you can contact the sellers that way. I recommend just picking a system. They all kind of do the same thing. Just pick one and learn it. Watch YouTube videos on how to operate the system, and just master that one system, and just start marketing. The most important thing is just taking action and moving forward. Don't get caught up trying to debate between the dialers, debate between the text message platforms. Just find one that works, learn it, and start marketing to sellers. Once you start actually marketing to these sellers and calling, you're going to need to know what to say. I like to keep it very simple. If they pick up the phone, I would just ask, hey, is this John Doe? And they'll say, yes, who is this? And then I'll introduce myself. Be like, hey, I'm Adriel. I'm a local real estate investor, and I just happened to notice your property at 123 Main Street. Have you by any chance considered selling the property? And then let the conversation flow from there. And once you do this enough times, you start realizing it's going to be the same 5 or 6 answers they're always going to say, and you prepare to respond to them in advance. It's either really going to be a yes, no, maybe, how did you get my phone number, I have to think about it, stuff like that. And once you get enough practice, you'll know kind of what you need to say to respond to each of those things. I can do a whole nother video on all the call scripts and live calls and what to say, whatnot, objections, how to overcome them. But that's not the point. The point is to give you the steps so you at least can start going and making and finding these deals. Now, you're going to get a lot of no's, but eventually you'll start having sellers interested in selling and telling you yes. Once you start getting that, you have to learn how to analyze the deal to see if it's a good deal or not. This is normally the most challenging part for beginners because knowing if a property is a good deal or not really comes with experience. So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation. The first thing you want to figure out is the condition of the property. You should be asking these pre-qualifying questions in the initial phone call to get an idea of the condition of the property. Is there any roof leaks? How old is the roof? Does the AC work? Is there foundation issues? Is there anything you're aware of that needs repairs? Those are all good questions to ask to get an idea of the property's condition in your head. What's even better is if the seller can actually send you pictures of its current condition. Otherwise, you're going to have to make an appointment with the seller to meet them at the property and walk the property so you can take pictures and see for yourself the condition of the property. When you go and take pictures, make sure to take tons of photos. Take photos of every room from every angle. Take photos of the floors, the ceilings, anything that looks damaged or off. Take photos of it close up and from far away. We're going to need these photos later, and we want to be very comprehensive with the photos. So for example, if you see cracks in the wall, a hole in the floor, a broken window, take photos of everything. Because also, if you need to refer back to the property, you can look through the photos instead of having to call the seller and ask them to go out to the property another time. Also, while you're at these appointments with the seller, try to build rapport with the seller and make them feel comfortable. At the end of the day, this is sales, not real estate. So you want to make sure that the seller is comfortable and you get to know the situation so you know the real reason why they want to sell. Sometimes it's not just about money. Once you know the condition of the property, you can start running comparable sales analysis. So running comps, for short, is when you look at other similar properties that have sold recently and what they sold for. This will help you determine how much the property you're looking at is worth. However, running comps is kind of a subjective kind of art because how well a bathroom or kitchen is designed or remodeled is very subjective to an end buyer. They might pay more for a kitchen that they think is prettier, but someone else might not like that same kitchen. So it's not a very cut and dry science to running comps. But if you practice enough times, you'll start to figure out more or less how to be in the right ballpark for price. When I run comps, I like to break it down into 3 categories: full renovation, livable as is but outdated, and HGTV fully renovated. That way you can make sure you're comparing similar finishes of the properties. Then go back to the photos of the property and try to see which homes sold are in similar condition. That gives you a baseline of what the property is worth as is and what it should sell for, how it is currently in its condition. And then look at fully renovated homes of similar square footage in the same neighborhood to see how much it should sell for if it was fully renovated. Now, to find these sold properties, you can either look at Zillow for free or use something like PropStream, which is a paid service, but it can give you access to sales comps. Now, there is a caveat. Certain states are non-disclosure states, like Texas, where I'm at. That means the sale price of these properties are not public information, and the only way to find them is to have access to the MLS or the multiple listing services. That's what licensed realtors use to list and sell properties. So if you're in one of these non-disclosure states, you're going to want to either A, get your real estate license so you have access, or B, which I prefer, is to network and find a realtor that you can partner with. They can use their MLS access to run comps or have them run comps for you. What I like to offer is, hey, I'm an investor and I'm getting a lot of leads, but sometimes the numbers don't work for me, but they want to sell and it would sell pretty quick on the market. I can refer you these retail leads in exchange for you giving me MLS access. So that's kind of a win-win situation where you're giving them more business, but now you have access to run your comps and make sure you're getting a good deal. Some best practices for running comps is to make sure that you're looking at houses within 200 square foot of the subject property. So if the house you're analyzing has 1,500 square foot, only look at houses sold between 1,300 and 1,700 square foot. You don't want to look at houses that are way bigger or way smaller that sold. Next is always look in the same zip code, and if possible in the same exact neighborhood or subdivision. This way you're making sure you're comparing similar homes to get an accurate sales price. Now, once you figure that out, the next step is figuring out how much money it's going to cost to renovate the property. Now, in order to do this, there's multiple ways you can do it. Now that you have pictures, you can, 1, reach out to contractors on Google and send them some pictures and ask them for a rough ballpark estimate on how much it'll cost to renovate the property. You also want to send them pictures of the fully renovated houses so they have an idea of what they need to renovate it to what level finishes and to what standard. So that's a great way to do it. Another way is to find contractors on Facebook groups. If you look up in your area, there's normally Facebook groups for jobs wanted or construction, or just real estate investors. Real estate investors are gonna know contractors. You can post it on there, ask for them to give you bids and prices based on those photos. If they really want to walk the property before giving you a price, that's fine too. The first few times when you walk these properties, you want to take a contractor with you so they can point out things and explain to you how much things will cost while giving you an accurate bid. Now that you know the value of the property and how much it's going to cost to renovate the property, you can finally figure out the formula on how much you can offer the seller to make it a good deal. So the formula is the after repair value minus the renovation cost, minus the profit for the flipper or end buyer, minus your wholesale fee profit, and that will give you your offer that you want to offer the seller for the property. So let's say you ran comps on a house and you know it could sell for $400,000 if it was fully renovated. And now let's say 3 different contractors gave you bids of roughly around $50,000 to fix up the house to get it fully renovated. And let's take into consideration that a flipper or an end buyer might want to make a $70,000 profit on this deal. And then you, as a wholesaler, you just want to make $10,000 right away, get a quick fee. So the formula would be $400,000 minus $50,000 minus $70,000 minus $10,000. That would bring you to an offer price of $270,000 for the property. Now, you do want to start a little lower so you have room to negotiate with the seller. For example, I would probably start at about $250,000 and see what the seller comes back at. Let's say the seller wanted $290,000, then you guys can negotiate and eventually meet in the middle at $270,000, which was the price you originally wanted anyways. Now let's briefly talk about negotiating with the seller. Negotiating in sales is an art, and you're not going to be good at it when you first start. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to lose deals, but over time when you practice and get better, you'll get more deals. I like to keep it simple. I would kind of say, hey, Mr. Seller, from what I'm looking at after running my numbers, I would have to be at around $250,000 for the property. How does this sound to you? And kind of gauge their reaction and their feedback. If they kind of react in a way where it sounds like it's too low, you want to show them the value you're bringing. I like to say, keep in mind, I'm covering all the closing costs and there's no commissions. So the price I give you is the price you're going to get in your pocket less prorated property taxes. Also, I'm making this smooth, quick transaction for you instead of having it drag out for many months on the market. And I also like to bring up the repairs and needs. I kind of say, hey, it's a little more work than I thought. This needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. That's why I'm getting this price I have. Now, not every negotiation is gonna go through, right? A lot of times, a seller would just want too much money, or you guys can't see eye to eye on a good price. Don't worry about it, it's gonna happen, but if you're consistent and you're persistent, you're eventually gonna get yeses and good deals. Once you agree on a price with the seller, you need to put the property under contract. A purchase and sales agreement or a sales contract is a legally binding document showing that the sale is gonna happen because you and the seller finally agreed legally. A verbal yes isn't a valid contract. If you're starting out, a good option is your state's real estate purchase and sales agreement. You can probably Google to find that online. Here in Texas, it's the TREC contract. It's the official purchase and sales contract for real estate. And I started using this my first few years when I was wholesaling real estate because it seems more official and it's more protective language. The only thing you want to make sure you add is to have some sort of language in the contract that says this contract is assignable. That gives you the right to assign the contract to an end buyer. A lot of times I also like to use a simple 1 or 2 page contract because a lot of times these state contracts are like 10, 15, 17 pages long and can get very confusing for a seller. There's plenty of these 1-page contracts you can Google online for templates or examples and just modify it to your state and then you'll be good. But as long as the contract has a language that it's assignable, it's a legal contract that you can assign in wholesale. Now, the last step of the process is finding an end buyer. Once you have a contract, you want to open escrow. That means you have to submit the contract to a title company, or if you're in a state that's attorney-based closings, submit it to an attorney. After you do that, you want to start finding an end buyer. A great place to find end buyers is your local real estate meetup group. You're going to find people doing real estate in your area, so you know they'll probably be interested in buying in that area. Another good place to find buyers is on Facebook. If you go on Facebook and you literally just search your city plus real estate investors, you'll probably see several groups pop up. Join these groups and you can post your deal there. For example, if I Google Houston real estate investors or Houston real estate investing, there's 4 or 5 groups with a lot of investors in there. Here's a tip though, you don't want to post the full address. You just want to post some pictures and maybe just the zip code, and then let them contact you, and you have to vet them first to make sure they're a serious buyer. Because a lot of times, this business is kind of shady. If you post the full address, someone else can just look up that address, look up the owner, and try to contact and reach out to them, and go behind your back and try to offer more to the seller to get a discount instead of paying you an assignment fee. When these buyers reach out to you, you want to try to vet them, make sure they're serious, legit buyers and not just tire kickers. You can ask for proof of funds or show proof of HUDs that they've closed deals before, or ask them about their track record and their experience. Another place to find serious buyers is the title company. If they're dealing with real estate investors, they're gonna see who's coming in and actually buying properties and who's not. You can just ask your escrow officer, hey, who are some big investors that are always buying properties and closing at this title company? So when you market the property, you actually want to market it higher than the price you really want. So instead of $270,000, I would market it at $290,000. Because one thing I know is all real estate investors will try to negotiate with you. They want to get a deal. They're always going to try to lowball you or try to negotiate you down so that it feels like they're getting a deal. So I'll start at $290,000 and I'll probably negotiate down and try to get $270,000, which is the price I want to make $10,000. If you analyze the deal correctly, it shouldn't be too hard to find a buyer. However, it does take practice, and if you found out that you locked a property up under contract for too high a price, don't be discouraged, just learn from the mistake and then apply that to future deals. Once you agree on the price of an end buyer, you're going to have to send them an assignment contract. This contract will basically state that you're signing the original contract between you and the seller to this new buyer. Once again, you can Google plenty of templates and examples online on how to fill out an assignment contract. Once you and the end buyer both sign the contract, you turn that into the title company as well. And at that point, it's just up to the title company to finish doing the title work and give a clear to close. And at closing, the end buyer will go in and close and send in the money, and then the seller will get paid out by the title company directly, and you will get paid out your assignment fee of $10,000. So in conclusion, that's a step-by-step process to make $10,000 this month by wholesaling real estate. If you want a more detailed breakdown of each step, check out my channel where I have a Wholesaling for Beginners series that breaks down each step in more detail. If you learned something and got some value from this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real estate content.